So, Malcolm, you're director of Make Votes Count.
Yes.
What exactly does that entail?
Make Votes Count is a cross-party coalition of different organisations and parties and individuals campaigning on electoral reform. And so my job is partly campaigning element, the activism, facilitating the supporters around the country, and partly putting on events, helping with the lobbying efforts in Parliament as well. So it's kind of two sides to it.
Okay, and what actually brought you into the electoral reform movement originally?
I was a very early supporter of Charter 88 back when I was studying politics at school, and I guess just this whole sense of both fairness and justice, not just in politics but in many other areas as well, is my driving force. And so I've started doing things to do with electoral reform in my local Make Votes Count South West London group when I was at university, and afterwards I worked in fair trade chocolate, but then it was also a very obvious jump for me from fair trade to fair votes, so that's kind of how I got further involved.
Right, and you're a Labour Party member as well, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm a sort of local Labour Party campaigner. I mean, I've been a Labour Party member since I was 18, but for me, my main passion is about getting people involved in politics and making sure that their votes and their voice in politics actually counts, and that's no matter what party.
Yeah. How do you think that the MP's expenses scandal has affected the debate for electoral reform?
So hugely in many ways, because we've been hammering on about the issue for a long time, and it needs something in the public eye to really kind of push it onto the mainstream agenda. We had that a bit in 2005 after the election result, but that died away, whereas because there wasn't enough anger, and that's really what you've got this time round with the election expenses, the expenses issue rather, is that people are angry with their MPs. They didn't think they'd be behaving in this way. They're not, particularly at a time of recession and when everyone else is struggling with finances. It just looks bad that MPs have been, swapping homes and doing various other things with their expenses. Therefore, people are angry, and then so that's one element, but then it needed something else as well, which the person who's holding the camera helped do that very good element, connecting the anger, the media sort of limelight with fair voting, with the actual voting system. And so what bloggers like yourself managed to do was to do the number crunching and link the fact that it was safe seat MPs who were the worst offenders. It was the fact that it was the unaccountability of MPs, which was the main key issue at stake. And so that's really how electoral reform has then bounced really high onto the agenda. It's because you've got that thing.
Do you think that electoral reform campaigners have done enough to use what you just talked about, that particular aspect of it, and kind of push it as part of the campaign?
I think we've been doing a lot. Obviously, the elections, the expenses crisis kind of came up quite and sort of ballooned in the Telegraph quite quickly, and for any campaign it can be sort of challenging to push all your resources very quickly to one thing. And I think what we've had is you had the Vote for a Change campaign start up, which is kind of groups like Make Votes Count, Electoral Reform Society, but other organisations and people as well who, outside of our sort of normal electoral reform supporters, see what's happened and go, yes, now is the time for electoral reform, and really do this a big push on having a referendum on electoral reform. So you've had that push, and it's understandable that some people have, in our messages, we're trying to get across to a different set of people than we'd normally do, because there's so many more people out there who are more receptive to the message. So it's a question of not going on about, pure proportionality, fairness and sort of numbers, just fairness to parties. Actually, we've had to sort of change our messages, and this is about accountability of MPs. This is about getting rid of jobs for life and safe seats. And so some of those messages take time to filter through down to groups of individual campaigners and supporters. But as I say, now at the moment, everyone's kind of really pushing that.